I just want to see Aaron Rodgers play some of the best football he's ever played in his career, close quote. That was Nathaniel Hackett, his OC. He just wants to see him play some of the best football he's ever played in his career. Shady, you know how good Aaron Rodgers has been in his career. You played against him a lot. You beat him sometimes. You lost other times. Could we see Aaron Rodgers get back to that MVP season?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say it. It's adding up. I think his MVP years, right? His offense coordinator was Nathaniel Hackett.
Yes, sir.
He's there now. Young talent, not the same talent he had in Green Bay in his MVP years, but they're younger. I can see them getting there eventually, somewhere, somehow. And I think that the last part is like the question. Can I tweak it a little bit?
Please do. Please do.
I don't know if we'll get his latest MVP numbers like 48 and 5.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Touchdowns and picks, or was it 37-4? That's different. But I do think that he will be on the MVP list. I don't know if it's going to be 5th, 2nd, 6th. But he's going to be on there. I think he's going to be super efficient. I think they're going to win games. I think he's going to go from, as voters, you look at, okay, the Jets been a bad organization, bad team, right? Now they're like, have a chance to win the AFC East, which he may do. So, yeah, I truly think we can see him at the MVP caliber. That's the word. Yeah. MVP caliber.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think Aaron Rodgers will be in the MVP conversation. I don't think we will see his low season when he had 26 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I don't think we'll see his high season when he had 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think it will be somewhere in between. I think it'll be right around 35 touchdowns and 8 picks, 35 touchdowns and 7 picks. But most importantly, if the Jets are an 11 or 12 win team, the Jets that were a 7-win team last year.
The Jets.
If those Jets that haven't been to the playoffs since 2011, if that same Jets team wins 11 or 12, makes it to the playoffs, y'all don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the MVP conversation? A highly debated topic on this show. And Joy, you bring it up, and you've brought it up previously with Dave Hellman. It's not like the Heisman, the best player in college football. The MVP is the most valuable player. If the Jets go from a 7-win team that ain't made the playoffs since 2011 to an 11 or 12-win team that makes the playoffs for the first time in over a decade, it would be hard to argue that Aaron Rodgers is not more valuable than any quarterback, than any player in the National Football League. Because I would suggest before I close, even if Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, was not on the Chiefs, I believe Andy Reid would find a way to win 7 or 8 games. Okay. I believe Andy Reid would find a way to win 8 or 9 games. And that's Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. But we're talking value.
You just took it from, and let Joe go next, but you just took it from MVP conversation to winning the MVP. You just took it all the way there and said, this is why he could win MVP. Are you standing by that?
I'd stand by it. I'd stand by it.
0 to 100 real quick.
Emmy, either say it with your chest or don't, okay? No, I stand by it. No, I need a little bit more than that.
You gonna give some oomph?
Put you on the hot seat.
It's the reason I'm torn. To win MVP, you got to go crazy statistically.
Crazy work.
48 touchdowns, 5 picks, or your team has to be great. I think Aaron Rodgers will do one of the two. I don't think he'll do both.
Well, the NFL MVP is very different than the NBA MVP. Only quarterbacks win the NFL MVP traditionally. And to your point, you got to have a great record and you got to put up numbers. They don't make the concessions of, oh, well, the Jets weren't in the playoffs for this long and now you got there and they made the playoffs. Voters don't do that, particularly for a position as valuable as the quarterback and whose numbers that we focus on so much. So they're not going to make that concession. Oh, it's a 10-win team. They won 7. They ain't doing that. They're not going to do that. His numbers would have to be obscene in order for that to happen. To be in the MVP conversation, cool, that's cute. I mean, there were a lot of players last year that were in the MVP conversation that at the end of the year were nowhere near actually winning the MVP. It came down to 2 guys, and those 2 guys were the quarterbacks of the number 1 seeds in the respective conferences. Right. So at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the elite of the elite who are actually at the top and realistically in the MVP conversation. I don't think we're going to see that for multiple reasons from Aaron Rodgers this year. You know, sometimes we got to do this shady, we got to hate. I'm just keeping it real. I got to keep it real. It's what I get paid to do. Devontae Adams is not walking through that door.
He's not.
And I don't care what people say. Devontae Adams was a massive part of those MVP years. I even think that Aaron Rodgers might say that Devontae Adams played a huge role in that. Another factor in this is that they are no longer playing. He is no longer playing in the NFC North. He is now in the AFC East. You are not walking through this division.
Not at all.
You're just not. It's going to be harder for you this year, even with the talent that you have with the Jets. Obviously, you don't have Davante Adams. You have a nice receiving core, but it ain't Davante, who, if we keep it real, is probably the best receiver in the league, and they had an unbelievable relationship. Also, mentioning the division, in 2020, one of his back-to-back MVP years, he played against the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions. Their defensive rankings were 29th, 14th, and 32nd. The second year he won the MVP, Minnesota Vikings, 24th, Bears, 22nd, Detroit Lions, 31st in defensive rankings. That's not the case. That helps. Playing in that division and putting up those obscene numbers that he did help.
It's true.
Not hating. It's just is what it is. People used to say this about Tom Brady playing in the AFC East when the AFC East was down. It doesn't matter. You can't help who you play, but it does matter. And that's not the situation with the Jets.
But here's what's interesting to me, because I was thinking about the Davante Adams point as you were making it and slightly before you were making it. Garrett Wilson is the most talented prospect Aaron Rodgers has ever played with a wide receiver. Prospect. Think about none of those players that Aaron Rodgers played with their wide receiver were drafted in the first round, just off GP.
That's true.
Secondly, you already know Garrett Wilson went to Ohio State. A lot of Aaron Rodgers receivers, Jordy Nelson went to K-State. James Jones went to San Jose State. Greg Jennings, I don't even know where he went, but I know it wasn't one of those national, prominently football schools. So Davante Adams, he played with Derek Carr, so he must have went to Fresno State. Garrett Wilson went to Ohio State and had 1,100 yards with Zach Wilson and company. So I would have to assume, Joy, that Aaron Rodgers...
They keep some wideouts.
On deck. Now, you know they're going to keep some on deck. I would have to assume that though Garrett Wilson is not Davante Adams or Jordy Nelson or James Jones or Greg Jennings, that he got to be able to do some of that. 1,100 yards as a rookie, hard to do. But I think most importantly, the question, Joy, is, and you bring up the great point, can Rodgers win 12 or 13 games? If he can do that, I think he's going to be there when it's all said and done.
He'd have to do that, win 12 or 13 games, which I do not think they're going to do, or his numbers would have to be, just unspeakable, like something we've never seen in the history of the NFL.
You guys are trying to make a case that's not selling. I got to tell you, right? Because you agree, like the conference, the division is much harder than what he's had previously. And I'll even give you that Garrett Wilson could possibly be in the realm of a Davante Adams.
Has to be, eventually.
But are they going to have the same running game? Again, there's a question mark. They could, but I seem to remember that Green Bay, the last 2 years that he was there, they had a pretty damn good running game there as well, right?
Yeah.
And here's the other part that we don't want to talk about because it's not sexy.
Uh-oh.
There's a huge difference in the offensive lines.
Well,
and you're talking about a guy who's 2 years older. The offensive line in Green Bay in 2020 was ranked second in the league. 2021, it was 14th, and that was with David Bakhtiari getting hurt, I think, halfway through the season.
Yeah.
The Jets have a horrendous offensive line.
They've been injured. They were injured.
Yeah, and
a lot healthier this year.
We'll see how much better they can get. But I take the unfamiliarity of his wide receivers along with that shaky offensive line. Yes, he can get the ball out quick. But as you guys know, that familiarity with your receivers in terms of getting it out quick and where they're going to go.
That matters.
So I don't know how he gets to those numbers. Do I think he's going to be better? Without question. He's motivated to be better and get them someplace that they haven't been. Do I think he's going to be vintage Aaron Rodgers? I don't know that this situation lends itself to that.
That is a great point. And I think it's almost a question that cannibalizes itself by the answer, because in order for the Jets to be great, I don't think he needs to be vintage Aaron Rodgers. I think he needs to be really good Aaron Rodgers. But if Aaron Rodgers throws 48 touchdowns with the Jets, there's a problem. like Breece Hall, where were you? Like, you know what I'm saying? If he throws 48 touchdowns, I'm like, Shady, what were they doing offensively?
And I think Joy made a great point, because I don't know if I'm agreeing with the prospect of, because Davante Adams is like,
he's like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I think for him to be like really, really good to be in the MVP conversation, just be consistent, right? Win games and be efficient. I think he can do that. I don't think we need to have 48 touchdowns. Yeah.
So that's,
you know what I'm saying? I don't think we need to have that.
So that raises the other question. And
they're going to run the ball, too.
Have to.
I don't know that he has to be in the MVP conversation. for the Jets.
But what I'm saying is I think he will.
Yes. It's interesting because remember Dak Prescott got MVP votes his rookie year. Why? Because the Cowboys were a 4-win team the year before. Tony Romo had gotten hurt.
Right.
They turned into a 13-3 team. Nobody expected
That matters, too.
It matters. That's why he got MVP votes.
Yeah.
Derek Carr got MVP votes because he went 12-3.
Yep.
It matters. If you are good, and people are like, oh, wow, your team ain't been good in a while, and now you good, that matters, but...
They got the longest playoff drought, too. In sports.
It'll get you votes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll get them a W, though.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.